And at a federal level, Labor's also failing to do anything about the high migration that we've seen in this country. And of course, you saw in the last few days, over the weekend, the marches across the country against mass migration. People are waking up to the damage that mass migration is doing to this country, but Labor says nothing to see here, no problem whatsoever. They're not going to make any changes to migration levels. Now, yes, they are lower. They're predicted to be lower this year. They're meant to be lower this year. They're meant to be lower in the coming years than they were for the last few years. But keep in mind, more than 1 million people have moved to this country permanently under the Albanese government. And they say it's okay because the number's now just a bit over 100,000. I mean, that doesn't help at all, I have to tell you. But Tony Burke, the Immigration Minister, said today that the Albanese Labor government will maintain the 2025-26 permanent migration program at the same level and settings as the 2024-25 program, 185,000. Follows consultation with the states and territories, which recommended maintaining the size and composition of the program with a focus on skilled migration. The Department of Home Affairs has been processing visas based on last year's level, so there has been no disruption to the delivery of the program. And I have to tell you, I have approximately zero confidence that that really makes any difference to anything, because the migration level over the last few years has been above what it was predicted to be anyway. So they can say, well, our target is 185,000, but lo and behold, it's 250,000. Where did that come from? It's simply a number on a page. And at what point are we going to admit that this is just a massive Ponzi scheme to keep the economy afloat so that we don't have to say on paper that we've been in recession for the last 3 years? Because in reality, we have been in recession for the last 3 years. GDP per head of population was going backwards for 8 straight quarters. That means in real terms, you have less money in your hands than you did before. 75% of jobs created in this country last year were in some way backed by government money. In 2023, a third of jobs were connected to the NDIS. And I couldn't believe this when I looked it up. And this number's from 2022. So I'm not sure what the latest number is, but this is the best I could find, the most recent data. 534,000 people work in the disability sector. That has more than doubled since 2016, ostensibly because the NDIS exists. Now, that is more, by hundreds of thousands, than there are people working in supermarkets that most of us go to at least every week, if not every day. The government is creating jobs for these people, bringing them in and saying, oh, look, well, we need them. We need them to fill the jobs. But if you stopped funding all those government-funded jobs, you wouldn't need to fill the jobs. It is a joke.
And the fact that the government won't be specific, they say, well, we'll keep numbers the same in terms of people coming into the country, permanent migration. But talking this morning about net migration, that's the number of people that come in minus the number of people who leave. We ended up with more than 500,000 people back in 22-23. Mark Butler on television this morning was asked, well, if you're going to reduce net migration, you're going to reduce it to what number? He said, well, substantially reduce it. And he was asked, yes, but to what number? And he said, a more ordinary number, which goes to your point. What confidence would you have that Labor will actually reduce numbers? And these comments right after thousands of people marched around the country calling for politicians to address the issue of mass immigration. Not only will the Labor government not give specifics, but they spent more time in Parliament wanting to talk about neo-Nazis marching, which is a tiny fraction of the crowd on the weekend, rather than what most people were there for, the issue of migration. We still can't talk about it.
Well, I think it's because Labor has to distract people from the issue of migration. And so by focusing on a small group of agitators who tried to hijack the protests for their own political gain, they're able to kind of change the narrative and make it appear that, oh, you know, this was just a fringe group. This isn't really representative of Middle Australia. But the facts say the opposite. The majority of Australia, so the Lowy Institute did polling on this, 53% of Australians think immigration is too high. Even among Gen Z, under 30s, that are the most woke, the most left-wing generation, 40% think immigration is too high. Most Australians think immigration is too high, but Labor does not want to confront that reality. So they want to distract us with neo-Nazis, culture wars, calling everyone racist, but the facts speak for themselves. And the immigration we've seen in the last 5 years or so has been double the post-war average. This is unprecedented. We've also had the highest level of population growth in the OECD, the fastest rate. It's just beyond comprehension. Over 30% of our population was born overseas. That's the second highest in the OECD. This is not normal. No other country has undergone such a dramatic demographic shift in 10, 15 years as we have, and we are paying the consequences. And this immigration number that they have, 185,000 for permanent migration, that's permanent migration. That's not temporary migration, which is students, international students, that are a massive contributor to the rental crisis. So the whole thing is all about distracting us from what's really going on. And when you look at the numbers, it is an absolute disaster for Australia.